The sky above the Pelennor Fields tore open like a wound, not with the thunder of Mordor's drums, nor the shriek of fell beasts riding black winds. This was something else. A seam of white light split the darkness that had smothered the sun for 3 days, and through it fell a shape, small, tumbling, wreathed in atmospheric fire. It screamed downward past the Ramaz Escher's shattered walls, past the burning siege towers and the 10,000 orcs who turned their pale eyes skyward in sudden, animal confusion. Saitama had exactly one thought before impact. I'm going to be late for the sale. Then he hit. The siege tower exploded. Not collapsed, exploded. Timber, iron, and Orcish bodies detonated outward in a sphere of splinters and shrapnel that scythed through 3 ranks of Mordor's host. The shockwave flattened catapults, overturned war wagons, sent trolls stumbling like drunkards. A crater 15 feet deep opened in the trampled earth, its edges glassed by friction heat, and at its center stood a bald man in a yellow jumpsuit, brushing dust off his shoulders with the vague annoyance of someone who just missed his bus. "Ugh," Saitama muttered. He blinked at the sky, or where the sky should have been. Only roiling blackness, lit from below by distant fires. What the hell happened to the sun? Around him, the Pelennor had gone silent. 30,000 orcs, Haradrim, Easterlings, and worse things still pouring from the Black Gate stared at the crater. At the man. At the impossibility of his survival. Somewhere in the distance, Minas Tirith's white stone burned orange under catapult fire, and men screamed on the walls. But here now the war had paused. An Uruk-hai captain, scarred, 9 feet tall, clutching a cleaver the size of a door, stepped forward. His voice was gravel over iron. "What are you?" Saitama looked up, considered the question. Human," the Uruk snarled. "No human falls from the sky, meat." "Well, I didn't plan to," Saitama said, scratching his head. His gaze swept across the horde, thousands of twisted faces, weapons raised, eyes glowing like coals in the false night. He registered armor he didn't recognize, beasts that shouldn't exist, the stench of rot and smoke thick enough to taste. "Where am I?" The Uruk roared and charged. Saitama sighed. The cleaver came down in an arc that would have split stone. Saitama caught it between thumb and forefinger. The Uruk strained, tendons screaming, and the blade didn't move a millimeter. Saitama tilted his head, genuinely curious. "You guys, are you monsters? Or cosplayers?" The Uruk's yellow eyes widened. It opened its mouth to scream. Saitama flicked the blade. The cleaver shattered. The Uruk flew backward, tumbling end over end through its own ranks, crushing a dozen lesser orcs before slamming into a ballista hard enough to fold it in half. The horde flinched as one, a ripple of instinctive terror that ran through 10,000 spines. Then the Witch King's voice rolled across the field like a funeral bell. "Kill it!" The host surged. They came as a tide of black iron and hate, howling in languages Saitama didn't know, swinging swords and spears and crude axes. He didn't move from the crater, didn't raise his fists, just stood there, letting them come because some deep, familiar part of him hoped that maybe, in this weird place with the missing sun and the monsters that weren't monsters, something would finally hurt. The first orc drove a spear into his chest. It shattered. The second swung a warhammer into his skull, crumpled like tinfoil. The third, a troll with tusks like scimitars, grabbed Saitama in both hands and squeezed, roaring its triumph, and then looked down in confusion as its palms fractured against skin that wouldn't compress. Saitama patted its wrist almost gently. "Sorry," he said, and pushed. The troll launched skyward, a screaming comet that vanished into the darkness, its arc visible only by the trail of armor it shed. It landed somewhere near Osgiliath. The splash was audible even 3 miles away. Saitama exhaled. Right, definitely monsters. He stepped out of the crater. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a culling. He moved through the horde like a man wading through tall grass, each step incidental, each gesture fatal. An orc lunged. He sidestepped, and the creature's momentum carried it into its fellows. A domino chain of collapsing armor. A warg leapt. He caught it by the throat mid-air, frowned at its snapping jaws, and tossed it gently aside. It landed 100 yards away, whimpering. A phalanx of Haradrim cavalry charged, lances leveled. He clapped once, and the shockwave shattered every spear, unhorsed every rider, left them groaning in a neat semicircle around him. He wasn't trying to kill them. Not really. But the Pelennor's earth was hard, and bodies broke easily when they landed wrong. From Minas Tirith's walls, men watched in silence. Soldiers, their faces gaunt with siege starvation, gripped the battlements and stared. Some wept. Some fell to their knees. One old guard, a veteran of Ithilion's retreat, whispered a name he hadn't spoken since childhood. Tulkas. The name spread like wildfire. Tulkas. The Valar have sent Tulkas. The champion has come. Saitama didn't hear them. He was busy staring at the black tower in the distance. Barad-dûr, though he didn't know its name, and wondering if whoever lived there was responsible for the missing son. That's probably where I need to go, he thought. Ask for directions. Maybe a phone. Then the Nazgul came. They descended on wings of shadow, the fell beasts shrieking like tortured steel, and the air itself seemed to curdle with despair. The Witch King led them, faceless beneath his crown, his blade glowing with unlight. The lesser wraiths flanked him, 9 black voids where men had once stood. Their presence was a weight, a drowning cold that froze breath in lungs and hope in hearts. Saitama felt it, a heaviness, not physical, something else. Something that pressed against his thoughts, whispering exhaustion, futility. Why bother? It never matters. You're always alone, always bored, always. He blinked. Ha! Weird. The Witch King's voice was death itself. No man can kill me. Cool, Saitama said. He jumped. The leap took him 200 feet straight up in half a heartbeat. The Witch King's blade swung. Saitama caught the flat of it, his momentum unstoppable, and the resulting collision tore the fell beast in half. The wraith tumbled, shrieking, and Saitama grabbed its cloak mid-air, yanked it close, face to faceless helm, and said, very simply, "Where's the exit?" The Witch King's crown flickered. For one impossible moment, the ancient malice animating that empty armor hesitated. Then Saitama's patience ran out. He flicked the wraith's forehead. The Witch King of Angmar, terror of the north, slayer of kings, unkillable by prophecy, ceased. Not dead, not banished, just gone. The armor fell empty, clattering across the Pelennor in a discordant symphony, and the crown bounced twice before settling in the mud. The other 8 Nazgul fled, their shrieks fading into the darkness like nightmares at dawn. Saitama landed, looked around at the 1,000 corpses, the shattered siege engines, the fleeing remnants of Mordor's vanguard. At Minas Tirith, where torches now blazed on every wall and horns sang in jubilation, he scratched his head. This is going to be annoying to explain. In Barad-dûr, 90 miles to the east, Sauron's will tightened around the eye. He had felt the Witch King's dissolution, felt the wrongness of it, the brute force severance that defied the metaphysics of Arda itself. No sort of Westerness had done this. No el enchantment. Just raw, incomprehensible force, wielded by something that shouldn't exist. The Dark Lord whispered into the minds of his captains, his voice silk over razors. Bring it to me, alive. The gates of Minas Tirith opened for the first time in 4 days. Not fully, just enough for a sortie of 20 men, led by a captain whose silver armor bore the dents of desperate combat. They rode hard across the Pelennor, past the craters and the corpse fields, toward the bald man in yellow who stood amid the carnage like a child lost in a market. Behind them, every soldier on the white city's walls watched in silence. Some prayed, most simply stared, trying to reconcile what their eyes had witnessed with anything their minds could accept. Saitama saw the horses coming and raised a hand in what he hoped was a friendly wave. "Oh, thank God. Do you guys know where?" 20 spears leveled at his chest. He stopped mid-sentence. Blinked. "Ah." The captain dismounted, his movements slow and deliberate, the way one approaches a wild animal. His face was weathered, scarred, and held the particular exhaustion of a man who'd been dying by inches for weeks. When he spoke, his voice cracked with something between hope and terror. "Are you sent by the Valar?" Saitama stared at him. "The what?" "The Valar," the captain repeated, urgent now. "The powers of the West. Did Manwë send you? Are you Maya? Are you?" He faltered, searching for words in a lexicon that had no space for this. "What are you?" "I'm a hero," Saitama said automatically. Then, more honestly, I was sort of. It's complicated. Look, I don't know what happened, but I was fighting this weird ghost thing back home, and then there was this tear, and now I'm here, and the sun's gone, and everyone's trying to kill me. So if you could just point me toward. You destroyed the Witch King. The captain's voice was flat with disbelief. The Morgul Lord, the shadow that slew Erner. You unmade him. The guy in the scary helmet? Yeah, he was being kind of rude. Saitama scratched his head. Is he important or something? The captain's spear dropped. He fell to one knee. Behind him, 19 soldiers did the same, their armor clattering against stone and mud. "My lord," the captain breathed. "My lord, Gondor is saved." "No, I'm not." "Get up, seriously, this is weird. Please." The captain looked up, and his eyes were wet. "Please, come to the city. Lord Denethor must hear of this. The people must see. We have been in darkness so long." Saitama opened his mouth, closed it, looked back at the distant black tower, then at the white city burning on its hill, then at the 20 men kneeling in the mud with expressions like drowning sailors glimpsing shore. "This feels important," some small part of him whispered. "These people need help." "Okay," he said quietly. "Yeah, okay." They rode through the gates an hour later, Saitama walking beside the horses because he didn't know how to ride and didn't trust himself not to accidentally kill one by mounting it wrong. The streets of Minas Tirith were packed despite the siege. People hanging from windows, crowding balconies, pressing against the walls of the ascending city levels. Word had spread faster than fire. The Valar have answered. A champion walks among us. Someone threw flowers. They bounced off Saitama's head. He picked one up, confused, and a child screamed in delight. "This is really unnecessary," he muttered. The captain, whose name was Dervarin, Saitama had learned, shook his head. "You don't understand. We thought we were dead. All of us. The darkness came, and the ramas fell, and the horns of Rohan did not sound. We thought the world was ending." He looked at Saitama with something approaching religious fervor. "Then you fell from the sky like a star. I just punched a thing. It's not a big deal. You killed 10,000 orcs without a sword, without sorcery, without effort." Dervarin's hand trembled on his reins. "If that is not the work of the Valar, then what are you?" Saitama had no answer. He was spared by their arrival at the citadel. The tower of Ecthelion rose like a blade into the false night, its white stone luminous even under the darkness. Guards in black and silver flanked the doors, the elite, faces hard as the stone they protected, and they did not kneel. They simply stared, hands tight on their weapons, as Saitama was led into the Hall of Kings. It was vast, pillared, empty except for the throne at its far end, and the man who sat upon it. Denethor, too, steward of Gondor, was not what Saitama expected. He looked sick, gray-faced, hollow-eyed, his fine robes hanging loose on a frame that had forgotten food. In his lap rested a black sphere, smooth, faintly reflective, wrong in a way Saitama couldn't articulate. The steward's fingers caressed it absently, and his gaze when it fell on Saitama was not grateful. It was hungry. So, Denethor said, his voice soft as a knife slipping between ribs. The darkness parts, and in walks a beggar dressed in motley. Tell me, stranger, what mockery is this? Saitama blinked. I'm not a beggar. I'm a hero. A hero. Denethor's smile was poison. With no sword. No armor. No heraldry. His eyes flicked to Dervarin. Captain, you kneel before this thing? And call him salvation? My lord, he destroyed the Witch King. Did he? Denethor leaned forward. Or did the Witch King withdraw, as is his master's cunning? Sauron is subtle. He does not send gifts without purpose. His gaze locked on Saitama, and the steward's voice dropped to a hiss. You arrive at our darkest hour, wielding power beyond reckoning, and expect us to trust you? How convenient. How perfectly timed. Saitama's patience, already worn thin, frayed a little more. Look, I don't know who Sauron is, but I'm not with him. I'm not with anyone. I just want to go home. Home. Denethor laughed, brittle and bitter. And where is home? Stranger? Mordor? The pits of Angband reborn? Did Sauron dredge you from some forgotten hell too? Father, enough. The voice cut through the hall like a blade, and every head turned. A man stepped from the shadows near the throne, tall, dark-haired, with the same sharp features as Denethor but none of the rot. His armor was dented, bloodied, functional. A ranger's cloak hung from his shoulders. His eyes, gray as winter, studied Saitama with wary intelligence. Boromir, Denethor said, his tone venomous. You presume to interrupt. I presume to speak truth. Boromir descended the steps, his hand resting on his sword hilt. Not threatening, but ready. He stopped 10 feet from Saitama, and for a long moment, they simply regarded each other. Then Boromir inclined his head, a fractional bow. I watched you from the walls. I saw the Witch King fall. If you are Sauron's thrall, you are the poorest spy in history. Thanks, Saitama said. Do not mistake me. I do not trust you, but I trust my eyes. Boromir glanced at his father. And I trust that anything capable of slaying the Morgul Lord is something we need on our side, not rotting in suspicion. Denethor's face purpled. You would gamble Gondor's fate on. Gondor's fate is already written unless the tide turns. Boromir's voice hardened. The Rangers are dead. Osgiliath is ashes. Rohan does not come. We have 3 choices. Trust the stranger, die on the walls, or open our throats now and spare Sauron the trouble. Silence. Denethor's hands tightened on the black sphere, and for a moment, something flickered in its depths. An eye vast and burning. The steward's mouth worked soundlessly. Then, abruptly, he stood. Take him, Denethor whispered. Give him quarters. Feed him. Watch him. His eyes found Saitama's, and they were pits. And if he betrays us, Captain Dervarin, if he so much as breathes treachery, you will cut him down. Do you understand? Dervarin paled. My lord, I don't think we can. Do you understand? Yes, my lord. Denethor waved them away, already turning back to his throne, to the sphere that pulsed faintly in his grip. Boromir lingered, his gaze still on Saitama, measuring. What's your name? He asked. Saitama. Saitama. Boromir tested it, foreign syllables that held no meaning in Westron or Sindarin. Strange name for a strange arrival. Tell me, do you know why you are here? Saitama thought of the ghost thing, the dimensional tear, the endless fall. No, he admitted. I really don't. Then we share ignorance. Boromir's hand left his sword. Come. Let us see if we can find answers before the next assault. Sauron will not wait long. As they left the hall, Saitama glanced back once. Denethor sat hunched on his throne, whispering to the black sphere, and the sphere seemed to whisper back. The sight made something cold settle in Saitama's gut. Not fear, he didn't do fear, but unease. That guy's in trouble, he thought, and he doesn't even know it. Outside, the darkness pressed tighter, and in the east, drums began to beat again. They gave him a room in the Citadel's barracks, stone walls, narrow window, a bed built for men who died in armor. Saitama sat on the edge of it and stared at his gloves. They were scorched from atmospheric entry, the fabric charred at the edges, but otherwise intact. Everything else felt wrong. The air tasted like ash. The darkness beyond the window was absolute, unnatural. No stars. No moon. Just the distant glow of siege fires painting the underside of the black in diseased orange. King would know what to do, he thought distantly. Genos would have already scanned everything and given me a threat analysis. I'd just nod and punch whatever he pointed at. But they weren't here. Nobody was. Just Saitama, alone in a world that didn't have supermarkets or manga or TV, where people rode horses and fought with swords and thought he was some kind of god. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "It's open," he called. Boromir entered, carrying a tray, bread, dried meat, something that might have been cheese. He set it on the small table without ceremony and leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You haven't eaten." "Not hungry." "You fought for an hour without stopping." "Killed." Boromir paused, visibly calculating. "We counted 9,847 dead on the field. You should be ravenous. Or dead from exhaustion. Yet here you sit, unmarked, untroubled." His gray eyes narrowed. "What are you?" Saitama sighed. "Everyone keeps asking that. Because you defy all sense. No man survives what you did. No elf could. Even the Astari would have fallen to exhaustion eventually." Boromir pushed off the wall, pacing now, the motion restless. "My father thinks you are Sauron's trap. The men think you are divine. I think—" He stopped, meeting Saitama's gaze. "I think you are terrified, and hiding it well." Saitama blinked. "I'm not scared." "Then what?" The question hung in the air. Saitama looked away, out the window toward the burning horizon, toward the black tower that rose like a spike through the world's heart. "Lost," he said finally. "I'm lost. I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got here. And everyone expects me to be something I'm not." Boromir was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he sat. Not on a chair, but on the floor, back against the wall, the informal posture of a soldier too tired to care about dignity. "Join the company," he said quietly. "Gondor expects me to be my father's sword, to hold a line that cannot be held, to die well when the time comes." He smiled, bitter. "We all wear masks too heavy for our necks. Yours sounds heavier." "Perhaps." Boromir studied him. "But you have not asked the important questions. You have not asked about Sauron, about the war, about why we fight. I figured someone would tell me eventually. Someone should." Boromir leaned his head back against the stone. "This is the War of the Ring. Sauron the Deceiver, ancient and terrible beyond mortal reckoning, has returned to claim dominion over all Middle-earth. He is Maya, lesser than the gods, greater than any living thing. He commanded armies before your ancestors learned to sharpen sticks. And he seeks an artifact of power, lost long ago, that would make him invincible." Saitama absorbed this. "So, he's a monster. He is the shadow that eats the sun. He is corruption given form. His mere presence warps the world." Boromir's voice dropped. "And you, whatever you are the first thing in 3,000 years that has made him hesitate." "How do you know?" "Because he has not attacked since you arrived. The drums beat, yes, but the assault has not come. He is thinking, planning, trying to understand you." Boromir's eyes were hard. "Sauron does not know fear, but he knows caution. You are a variable he did not predict." That makes you valuable. Or dangerous. To who? To everyone. A horn sounded low, mournful, from the outer walls. Boromir was on his feet instantly, hand on his sword. The watch signal. Something approaches. They ran. The 6th level's rampart was chaos. Soldiers scrambled into position, archers knocking arrows with shaking hands, captains shouting orders that barely cut through the rising panic. Saitama pushed through the press of bodies, men flinching away from his touch as if burned, and reached the wall's edge. Below, on the Pelennor, something was moving. Not an army. A single figure, walking through the corpse fields with the slow, inevitable pace of a falling axe. It was tall, 8 feet, maybe more, wrapped in black armor that drank the firelight. No face visible beneath the helm. No weapon drawn. Just walking, each step a pronouncement, and in its wake the very air seemed to rot. Mouth of Sauron, Boromir breathed beside him, his knuckles white on the parapet. The herald. He doesn't look that tough, Saitama said. He is not here to fight. He is here to speak. Boromir's jaw clenched. And every word from that mouth is poison. The herald stopped at the gate. When it spoke, its voice carried across the entire city. Not shouted, but somehow present, as if it whispered directly into every ear at once. Minas Tirith, Stone of Kings, Tomb of Hopes. Silence. Even the fires seemed to quiet. Your steward cowers in his tower. Your allies rot in distant fields. Your walls crumble. Your people starve. A pause, theatrical and cruel. And yet you cling to pride. How mortal. Ignore him, Boromir hissed to the men around them. Do not listen. But my master is merciful. He offers terms. A murmur rippled through the defenders. Saitama saw hope flicker in eyes that had held only ash, and something cold settled in his gut. Surrender the anomaly, the stranger who fell from the sky. Deliver him to us, and Gondor will be spared. Refuse. The herald raised one gauntlet hand, and behind him, the darkness moved, parted like a curtain to reveal what waited beyond. Trolls. Thousands of them. Siege engines the size of houses. Orcs in formations that stretched to the horizon. And behind them all, a shape that blotted out even the black. Something vast and winged, crowned with fire. And your children will curse your names as they burn. The murmur became a roar. Men turned to look at Saitama, not with reverence now, but with calculation. With the mathematics of survival. No, Boromir said, his voice cutting through the noise. Absolutely not. He killed the Witch King, someone shouted. Maybe that's what brought this down on us. He's an outsider. Why should we die for him? The Valar sent him. The Valar have abandoned us. Saitama watched it unfold with detached clarity. Saw the fracture lines forming. Saw Boromir trying to hold the line with words alone, and failing. Saw the faces turning ugly with fear. This is how it happens, he thought. Not with a fight, with a choice. He stepped forward. Hey, he said, loud enough to carry. The crowd quieted. If it'll stop people from dying, I'll go. No, Boromir started. It's fine. Saitama looked at him, and his expression was calm. Empty. The same face he wore every day in the city when nothing mattered and nothing ever would. Ive fodvers. Probably. And you guys have enough problems without me adding to them. You don't understand what he'll do to you, Boromir said urgently. Sauron does not grant mercy. He corrupts. He will break you, remake you, turn you into. He can try. Saitama shrugged. I'm pretty durable. This isn't about durability, you fool. Lord Boromir, Dervarin's voice, shaking. The captain stood at the rampart's edge, looking down at the herald. The men, the people, if he's willing. Boromir's face twisted. This is cowardice. This is survival. The debate raged. Saitama stopped listening. He was already moving toward the stairs, toward the gate, because it was easier. Because the math was simple. Because at least if he walked into whatever was waiting out there, he'd finally, get to punch something that might punch back. He made it halfway to the gate before Boromir caught his arm. "If you do this," the captain said quietly, "Gondor is damned. Not because we lose you, because we chose to lose you. We become what Sauron says we are. Cowards trading heroes for time." Saitama looked at him. "You barely know me. I know you killed 10,000 orcs to save people you'd never met. I know you didn't ask for worship or reward. I know you're more tired than any man I've ever seen." Boromir's grip tightened. "And I know that if you walk out that gate, you'll have died for nothing. Because we will fall anyway, just slower, and more ashamed. So what do you want me to do?" "Fight," Boromir said simply. "Not for Gondor, not for the Valar, for yourself, because you're tired of running from meaning." Saitama stared at him, at this man in bloodied armor who saw too much. "You don't know anything about me, don't I?" Boromir smiled, sad and knowing. "I see a hero who forgot why he became one. I see a man with infinite power and no purpose. I see someone who would rather die than admit he's afraid of living." The words hit harder than any punch Saitama had ever taken. Outside, the herald laughed, a sound like rust scraping bone. "The hour passes. My master's patience wanes. Deliver him, or—" Saitama turned to face the gate, felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on his back, felt the moment crystallize, sharp and absolute, and made his choice. "Tell him," Saitama called out, his voice flat but carrying, "that if he wants me, he can come get me himself." The Pelennor went silent. "What? You heard me." Saitama cracked his knuckles, the sound loud in the hush. "I'm not going anywhere, and if he's got a problem with that—" He looked up at the black tower, at the distant shape crowned with fire, and something in his eyes ignited. "Then he should stop hiding and fight me for real." The herald stood frozen. For the first time in 3,000 years of service, the Mouth of Sauron had no words. Then the darkness screamed. It wasn't sound, it was pressure, a psychic howl that sent men to their knees and cracked stone. The distant shape launched skyward, wings blotting out the false stars, and dove toward Minas Tirith like a meteor of hate and fire. Boromir grabbed Saitama's shoulder. "What have you done?" Saitama watched the shape grow larger, felt the heat of its approach, and for the first time since arriving in this insane place, he smiled. "Something stupid," he said, and jumped to meet it. Saitama cleared the wall in a single bound and hung suspended for one crystalline moment. 300 feet above the Pelennor, the burning city at his back, the onrushing nightmare ahead. He had time to register details. The shape wasn't a dragon, though it had wings. Wasn't a demon, though it radiated malice like heat from a forge. It was something wrong, a thing of smoke and fire wrapped around a core of absolute will, and it was fast. They collided 1,000 feet up. The impact shattered the sound barrier. The shockwave rolled across the Pelennor like a physical thing, flattening tents, overturning siege engines, sending orcs sprawling. On Minas Tirith's walls, men grabbed at the battlements to keep from being thrown, and the ancient stone groaned in protest. Saitama punched through the thing's center mass. His fist entered smoke and flame, and hit something solid beneath. Not flesh, not bone. Something denser, hotter, angrier. The creature shrieked, a sound that made ears bleed, and wrapped itself around him like a living bonfire. Wings enfolded, claws raked, teeth the size of swords snapped shut on his head. They shattered. Saitama grabbed what might have been a throat and pulled. The creature came apart in his hands. Not dying, but unraveling, smoke dispersing, fire guttering. And for one moment he saw what lay beneath the infernal shell. A man's face, twisted with agony and rage, screaming soundlessly before dissolving into ash. They fell. Saitama hit the Pelennor hard enough to crater the earth, the impact throwing up a geyser of dirt and stone. He stood, brushing soot off his cape, and looked up at the rapidly dissipating cloud above him. "That's it," he said to the empty air. "That's what everyone was scared of?" The answer came not in words but in presence. The darkness moved, not like wind or water, like a living thing contracting around the battlefield, drawing tight. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in as many seconds. Frost rimed the corpses. Breath became visible, then painful. And through the closing dark walked a figure that made the herald look like a child playing dress-up. Tall, armored in black iron that seemed to drink light. No face visible, just shadow within shadow, and eyes that burned with cold fire. It carried no weapon because it was the weapon. Every step it took left the ground scorched. The very air bent around it, warping like heat haze in reverse. Sauron's avatar. Not the Dark Lord himself. Not his true essence, which remained bound in Barad-dûr, but an extension of his will given terrible form. A fragment of Maya power compressed into something that could act on the mortal plane. It stopped 20 paces from Saitama and looked at him. The gaze was a hammer. It crashed into Saitama's mind with the weight of ages. Ancient malice, bottomless contempt. The cold certainty of a god judging vermin. It pressed against his thoughts, seeking purchase, looking for the cracks where fear lived, where doubt festered, where the self could be unmade and rebuilt in Sauron's image. Saitama felt it, felt the pressure, felt something vast and terrible trying to crawl inside his skull. He blinked. "Are you trying to read my mind?" The avatar's head tilted, a motion too slow, too deliberate. When it spoke, the voice was not sound but inevitability, the final word in an argument the universe had already lost. "You are broken." "Yeah, I get that a lot." "No." The avatar stepped forward, and the frost beneath its feet turned black. "You are broken in ways you do not comprehend. Your power is vast. Your will is hollow. You are a weapon without a hand to wield it. A god without worshippers. A hero without hope." Saitama said nothing. The words settled into the quiet places inside him, the spaces where King's reassurances never quite reached, where Genos's admiration felt like sandpaper on exposed nerve. "I can give you purpose," the avatar said, and its voice was almost gentle. "I can give you meaning. Serve me, and you will never be bored again. I will craft for you wars that span continents, enemies that push your limits, challenges that make you feel. In exchange for what? Dominion. Together, we will remake this world. No more weakness, no more chaos. Perfect order under perfect power." The avatar extended one gauntlet hand. "You yearn for struggle. I offer eternal war. You ache for meaning. I offer absolute purpose. Take my hand, and you will never be empty again." On Minas Tirith's walls, men watched in breathless horror. They couldn't hear the words, but they could see the tableau. The stranger in yellow facing the shadow, and the shadow offering something, and the stranger considering. Boromir's hand tightened on his sword until the leather grip creaked. "Don't," he whispered to the distant figure. "Whatever he's offering, don't." Saitama looked at the avatar's hand. Thought about his apartment in Z City. Thought about the grocery store flyers piling up on his table. Thought about the special sale he'd never make. Thought about Genos asking for the 1,000th time to be his disciple, and King inviting him to game nights where everyone pretended not to notice Saitama didn't care about winning anymore. Thought about the emptiness. "No," he said quietly. The avatar's hand didn't waver. "You refuse purpose? I refuse you." Saitama met those burning eyes without flinching. "You're right. I'm bored. I'm empty. I don't know what I'm fighting for most days." He clenched his fist. "But I know what I'm not fighting for. And it's not some asshole who promises meaning in exchange for everyone else's freedom." "Then you choose oblivion. I choose to punch you in the face." For one heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then Saitama moved. He closed 20 paces in a fraction of a second, fist drawn back, and the avatar moved to meet him, not with speed, but with the horrible inevitability of a falling mountain. Their collision was cataclysmic. The Pelennor buckled. Fissures opened in the earth, racing outward like lightning, and Minas Tirith's foundations shook. Saitama's fist connected with the avatar's chestplate. The armor cracked, not shattered, not destroyed, but cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading from the impact point, and through those cracks leaked something that wasn't blood or ichor but pure, screaming wrongness. The avatar staggered one step, two, and its hand shot out faster than thought, catching Saitama by the throat. The fingers closed, squeezed, and Saitama felt pressure, not enough to hurt, not even close, but enough to register. The first time since landing in this world that something had actually pushed back. He grinned. There we go. He grabbed the avatar's wrist and twisted. The gauntlet crumpled like paper. The avatar's grip released, and Saitama drove his knee into its midsection with enough force to lift the construct off the ground. It flew backward, tumbling through the air, and crashed through 3 siege towers before slamming into the Ramaz Eshur's ruins hard enough to bury it under 10 tons of rubble. Saitama landed in a crouch, breathing steady, and waited. The rubble exploded outward. The avatar emerged, smoke pouring from the cracks in its armor, its form less solid now, flickering between corporeality and shadow, but still standing, still present. Interesting. You're tougher than the others, Saitama admitted. But not tough enough. Perhaps. The avatar raised both hands, and the darkness responded. It coalesced, condensed, became something thicker than smoke and sharper than blades. But I am not here to test your strength, little weapon. I am here to break your will. The darkness surged. It came as a tide, as a tsunami, as the weight of despair given physical form. It crashed over Saitama like a collapsing ocean, and this time the assault wasn't physical, it was existential. Images flooded his mind, his apartment, empty, his hero association card, revoked for inactivity. Genos's core, shattered beyond repair. King, dead in some random mugging while Saitama wasn't there to help. Every person he'd ever saved, dying anyway, because entropy won in the end and heroes were just delays in the inevitable march toward nothing. What's the point? The darkness whispered in a voice that was his own. You're the strongest thing alive, and it doesn't matter. It never mattered. You could save 1 million people and they'd still die eventually. You could fight forever, and the universe would still go cold. You are powerful and you are meaningless, and you will always be alone. Saitama stood in the black, feeling it press against him from all sides, and for a long moment he just absorbed it. Let it wash over. Let it show him every fear he'd ever pushed down, every doubt he'd ever ignored. Then he started walking. Not fast, not dramatically, just 1 foot in front of the other, moving through the darkness like a man wading through deep water. Because yes, maybe it was all pointless. Maybe nothing mattered. Maybe he'd be bored and empty until the heat death of the universe. But there were people on those walls who needed him not to give up. And that was enough. It had to be enough. The darkness recoiled as if burned. Saitama emerged into clear air, his expression unchanged, and looked at the avatar. You done? For the first time, uncertainty flickered in those burning eyes. How? I've been empty a long time, Saitama said. You can't scare me with it. He punched the avatar again. This time, the construct's torso shattered completely. Flame and shadow exploded outward, and at the center, just for an instant, Saitama saw a door. A gateway carved from darkness, leading somewhere else, somewhere vast and drowning in malice. And through that door, something looked back. Not the avatar. Not a fragment. The real thing. The eye. Sauron himself, focused entirely on Saitama for one terrible, infinite moment. and in that gaze was recognition. Understanding. The Dark Lord saw what Saitama was. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that broke the rules. Something that could not be corrupted because there was nothing to corrupt. Just a hollow man who kept swinging anyway. You! Sauron's true voice echoed from Barad-dûr, resonating across 90 miles of blighted land, are the weapon that will destroy everything, or save it. But you do not know which. The door slammed shut, the avatar collapsed into ash, and Saitama stood alone in the crater, staring at the distant black tower, where a single window now burned like a baleful star. On Minas Tirith's walls, 10,000 people erupted in cheers. Saitama barely heard them. He was thinking about what the Dark Lord had said. Weapon. Destroy. Save. I just wanted groceries, he thought tiredly. Boromir reached him first, sliding down the wall on a rope and sprinting across the corpse field with the desperate speed of hope rekindled. He grabbed Saitama's shoulders, shaking him. His face split in a grin that looked almost painful. You did it. You unmade him. Sauron himself withdrew. Do you understand what this means? That he'll try something else? Saitama guessed. That we have time. That Rohan might arrive. That the people have hope again. Boromir laughed, wild and disbelieving. You absolute madman. You called his bluff. I don't think it was a bluff. The laughter died. Boromir's expression sobered. What did he offer you? In that moment I saw you hesitate. What did the enemy promise? Saitama looked at him, at this man who'd seen through him from the start. Purpose, he said honestly. And I almost took it. But you didn't. No. Saitama's gaze drifted back to Minas Tirith, to the tiny figures on the walls waving banners and weapons in jubilation. Guess I'm still figuring out what I'm fighting for. But I know it's not that. Boromir clapped his shoulder, the grip firm and genuine. Then you're wiser than half the heroes in legend. Come. Let them see you. Let them believe. They walked back toward the city through a field of ash and broken iron. Behind them the darkness began, slowly, grudgingly, to thin. Not lift entirely, but recede, as if the will holding it in place had turned its attention elsewhere. In Barad-dûr's highest chamber, Sauron stared into the Palantir and planned. They gave him a hero's welcome, not the quiet, reverent kind, the wild, desperate kind that comes when doomed men glimpse salvation. Soldiers mobbed him at the gates, trying to touch his cape, his gloves, anything. Mothers held up children to see. Old men wept. Someone started a chant. Tulkas, Tulkas, and it spread like wildfire until the entire city rang with a name that wasn't his. Saitama endured it with the same patient discomfort he'd shown during Hero Association press conferences. He nodded, waved vaguely, let Boromir guide him through the crowd like a shepherd moving a particularly apathetic sheep. They were halfway to the citadel when the horns sounded again. 3 sharp blasts, the signal for officers to the war council. The crowd parted immediately, years of siege discipline overriding celebration. Boromir's expression hardened. Denethor calls. This should be unpleasant. He still thinks I'm evil? He thinks everyone is evil except himself. And even that's negotiable. Boromir's jaw tightened. My father was a great man once. The Palantir has made him something else. The black ball, the seeing stone, a relic of Numenor, meant to communicate across great distances. But Sauron holds the Master Stone in Barad-dûr, and through it, Boromir trailed off, his expression haunted. Through it he shows my father only despair, only the inevitable, until all Denethor can see is the coming darkness. Saitama filed that away as they entered the Hall of Kings. It was more crowded this time. Captains, advisors, a handful of guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. And at the throne, Denethor, clutching the Palantir like a drowning man grips driftwood. The steward's eyes found Saitama immediately, and they were fevered. The weapon returns. Tell me, hero, what did Sauron offer you? The hall went silent. Purpose? Saitama said, because lying seemed more trouble than it was worth. He said he'd give me purpose if I served him. Gasps, whispers, hands moving toward sword hilts. Denethor smiled, triumphant and terrible. You see? You see? The creature admits it. He conversed with the enemy. I told him to fuck off. Saitama interrupted. The whispers stopped. Denethor's mouth worked soundlessly. He offered. I refused. Then I punched him until he broke. Saitama shrugged. That's pretty much it. You refused. Denethor's fingers tightened on the palantir until the knuckles went white. You refused the Dark Lord's offer. Yeah. Wasn't interested. Liar. The word came out as a hiss. No one refuses Sauron. No one resists his will. You are compromised. Corrupted. A sleeper agent waiting to. Father, enough. Boromir stepped between them, his voice sharp. He destroyed the Avatar. He drove back the assault. The people have hope for the first time in weeks. If you call him traitor now, you betray Gondor more than any spy ever could. Do not presume to lecture me on betrayal, boy. Denethor rose from his throne, the palantir cradled in both hands, and for a moment the stone pulsed with inner light. I have seen the future. I have looked into the eye and beheld what is to come. Gondor falls. Rohan falls. The west drowns in blood and fire. There is no hope. There is no salvation. There is only the choice of how we meet the end. Then choose to meet it fighting, Boromir said quietly. Not cowering in this hall, poisoning yourself with Sauron's visions. Denethor's face purpled. You dare? My lords. Captain Dervarin stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. Forgive me, but we have more immediate concerns. The scouts report movement from Mordor. Not a retreat, a reorganization. They're pulling back to defensive positions. Everyone turned to stare at him. Defensive? Boromir's brow furrowed. Why would Sauron go defensive? He has the numbers, the momentum, unless... His eyes widened. Unless he's afraid. The Dark Lord does not know fear, Denethor spat. He didn't, Saitama said. All heads turned to him. He scratched his head, uncomfortable with the attention. But I think I confused him. He called me a weapon, said I could destroy everything or save it. Didn't say which. He looked at Boromir. What does that mean? The captain's expression was grim. It means Sauron is a chess player, and you are a piece he cannot predict. He will not move against us directly until he understands you, which gives us time but also makes you a target. He turned to Dervarin. Double the guard on Saitama's quarters. No one enters without my clearance. That's really not necessary. It is. Boromir's voice brooked no argument. You have become the most valuable asset in this war. Every assassin, every corrupted agent, every desperate fool who thinks sacrificing you will buy mercy, they will all come for you now. You may be invincible, but the people around you are not. Saitama's expression flickered. People around me. Yes, your presence protects us, but it also paints a target. Anyone close to you becomes leverage. Boromir's eyes were hard. Welcome to strategy. It's uglier than combat. Before Saitama could respond, the doors burst open. A ranger stumbled in, armor-torn, face ashen, barely standing. He collapsed to one knee, gasping. My lords, a rider. From Rohan. Hope flared on every face. Rohan comes. Boromir demanded. No, my lord. The ranger's voice cracked. Rohan is besieged. Their riders cannot reach us. Saruman has taken the field with 10,000 Uruk-hai. Helm's Deep is under assault. They beg for aid, but... He swallowed. But we cannot spare it. The hope died like a snuffed candle. Denethor laughed, brittle, broken. You see? There is your salvation. Rohan drowns while we burn. The West is finished.
No.
Saitama's voice was quiet, but it cut through the despair like a blade. Everyone turned. Where's Helm's Deep? 200 leagues northwest, Boromir said slowly. 3 days hard ride for cavalry. A week for infantry. Why? How long would it take me to run there? Silence. Then Boromir's eyes widened. You can't be serious.
I am fast.
Really fast. If people need help, I should help them. Saitama looked around the hall, at the faces staring at him like he'd spoken in tongues. That's what heroes do, right? You would abandon Minas Tirith? Denethor's voice was venomous. The moment we have need of you, you flee. I'm not fleeing. I'm splitting my attention. Saitama turned to Boromir. How often does Sauron attack? What's the schedule? There isn't one. He strikes when he perceives weakness. So if he's reorganizing, that means he's not attacking today. Or probably tomorrow. Saitama cracked his knuckles. Which means I have time to run to this helm place, punch whoever's causing problems, and run back before he notices I'm gone. That's insane, someone whispered. That's impossible, Dervarin said. Boromir stared at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled. You know what? It is insane. It's also exactly the kind of move Sauron won't anticipate. He's planning for a siege, for attrition, not for his opponent to be in 2 places at once. He turned to the ranger. How many days until Helm's Deep falls? 3, maybe 4 if they're fortunate. Then we have time. Boromir gripped Saitama's shoulder. Go. Save Rohan. But come back. Gondor will need you when the real assault begins. You can't authorize this, Denethor snarled. I just did. Boromir's voice was steel. You are steward, father, but I am captain of the White Tower, and this is a military decision. Saitama goes to Helm's Deep. We fortify here, and we pray that between the 2 fronts, we can hold until... Until what? Denethor's laugh was ashes. Until the ring is destroyed? Until Frodo the Halfling somehow crosses Mordor and casts it into the fire. He clutched the palantir tighter, and his voice dropped to a whisper. The ring-bearer is dead. I have seen it. The quest has failed. There is no hope. There never was. The words fell like stones into dark water. Saitama blinked. Ring-bearer? There's another quest. Boromir's expression shuddered. It's complicated. A fool's errand, Denethor said. A mad wizard's gambit. Gandalf sent a hobbit, a creature no bigger than a child, to destroy the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom, as if Sauron would not see him coming, as if the ring itself would not betray its bearer. He laughed again, the sound jagged. But it doesn't matter now. The halfling is dead, the ring is taken, and the world ends. All that remains is the choosing of our epitaph. Saitama processed this. So there's a guy, with a ring, trying to destroy it, to kill Sauron. Essentially, where is he now? Dead? Denethor said flatly. Presumed dead, Boromir corrected, shooting his father a venomous look. The Palantir shows what Sauron wishes to show. It is not prophecy. It is propaganda. Then where do you think he is? If he lives? Somewhere in the Morgul Vale, or the Black Gate, or... Boromir's expression darkened. Or already in Mordor's heart, beyond any help we could offer. Saitama absorbed this, thought about the kid with the ring trying to sneak into the evil tower to destroy the evil artifact. Thought about how that sounded exactly like a video game quest. I could go get him. No, Boromir said immediately. Absolutely not. Why not?
I am fast.
I could. You could walk directly into Barad-dûr, kill everything in your path and still fail. Boromir's voice was urgent. The ring isn't a normal artifact. Corrupts. It twists the bearer's desires, amplifies their flaws, turns them against themselves. Even touching it is dangerous. For someone with your power, he trailed off, but the implication hung heavy. You think it would control me? I think it would try, and the attempt alone might doom us all. Boromir leaned closer, his voice dropping. You are the most powerful being I have ever encountered. If the ring claimed you, if it turned you into its champion, nothing could stop you. Not Sauron. Not the Valar. You would become the tyrant this world has nightmares about. Saitama frowned. I wouldn't. You don't know that. No one does. The ring has broken greater wills than yours. Boromir's eyes were haunted. It broke mine. In Amon Hen, I tried to take it from Frodo. Me. I who swore to protect him. One moment near the ring, and I became a monster. The admission hung in the air. Denethor watched with bitter satisfaction. The other captains looked away, embarrassed. Okay, Saitama said finally. No ring rescue. I'll stick to punching things. He turned toward the door. I'm heading to Helm's Deep. Be back in a couple days. Wait, you're leaving now? No point waiting around. Saitama paused at the threshold, glancing back. Besides, if what you said is true about me being a target, then the further I am from this city, the safer you guys are. Right? Boromir opened his mouth, closed it. That is uncomfortably sound logic. Don't get killed while I'm gone. We'll do our best. Saitama nodded and walked out. Behind him, he heard Denethor's voice, sharp and mocking. The weapon flees, and you let him. When Sauron comes again, you will remember this moment, boy, and you will know despair. Perhaps, Boromir said quietly. But today, Father, we have something you have forgotten exists. We have hope. In the corridor outside, Saitama stopped, looked out a window toward the north, where mountains carved the horizon. 200 leagues. He'd never measured his top speed before, never needed to. But if people were dying, he took a breath and ran. The sonic boom shattered every window on the 6th level. Soldiers threw themselves flat as the shockwave passed. And on the walls, men watched in awe as a yellow streak shot across the Pelennor, through the ruins of the Ramas, and vanished into the wilderness beyond. Moving faster than arrows, faster than thought, a comet of hope racing toward the besieged. In Barad-dûr, Sauron felt the disturbance and turned his gaze northwest, saw the trajectory, understood the implication, and for the first time in an age, the Dark Lord felt something uncomfortably close to concern.